This episode of the Chiropractors Edge is brought to you by Dripify. Doc, you're the best at what you do because you have practiced every single day. You have given absolutely everything of your all to hone your craft. You're the best. But what good is that if no one can find you? In a digital world where information is rushing through the palm of your hands, you need a company that can help you get into the eyes, the hearts, and the homes of your ideal client. And that is why we trust Dripify. Dripify makes state-of-the-art websites. They do your SEO, your marketing, your email campaigns. They even edit the ums out of your podcasts. Get Dripify today and get in front of your ideal client and do what you do best. Change people's lives through chiropractic care. Welcome to the Chiropractors Edge. It is my sincerest honor and privilege to bring on an incredible friend, an incredible advocate to chiropractic, someone who has led by example as a former president of the IFCO, who leads by love. When my wife and I were talking, I said, I one word that really describes Jack Bourla, turn my phone, is love. She said, yep, absolutely, love. You love unconditionally. You get hugs from every person, every seminar we go to. I love that you lead by love. I love that you are a chiropractor who leads by love. And we welcome you to the Chiropractors Edge today, Jack.
Thanks. It's such a great pleasure to be with. It's a great pleasure with you anywhere. This is our second week in a row, so this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, Jack, one of the things that I'm so impressed by you is, you hear who people are from other people. Like you could come up to me and say, I'm Jack Bourla. Love, is spoken everywhere in my practice. Love is given in my practice. Love, 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 love. But when someone else comes in and says, hey, that's Jack Bourla. That guy has the greatest heart of love you'll ever meet. This guy is an intellectual. I have absolutely loved hearing you speak and from a place of compassion. And I've also seen you where you have fire in your eyes and you have fire in your belly protecting chiropractic. And I love that you have found a place where you can stand, that love is not violent, that love can come from a place of authority, that when Jack speaks, we listen. Is this how you've always been, Jack? Is this something that you've cultivated, that you've grown? Has this just been part of who you are? How did this become part of you where everyone thinks it's about you?
Great question. Interesting question. And given that my memory isn't what it used to be, I'll have to make some stuff up as we go along. As a kid, I was always very empathetic and compassionate. Fortunately, I was a good student. I was pretty good in sports. I was always the president of something, even in elementary school. And when it came time for example, basketball, I was usually the captain of one of the sides, and I always picked the underdog. I always picked the kid that no one else would pick, because it broke my heart to see the same people being picked last all the time. And at such an early age, and I didn't know this back then, but at such an early age, that leaves such an impression in these people's minds and in their hearts.
Wow.
And for me, that was not okay. And so I always tried to bring the underdog with us. And it worked out fine. And some of these underdogs I'm still friends with, even 60 years later. So that's pretty awesome.
Wow.
But I've always had this in me, and it was easy then to transition into a business in which love is really the foundation. Now, this is not my first job. I've had many jobs before I became a chiropractor, but in chiropractic, it allowed me to express very authentically the true being that I am. And I'll tell you, and my wife will tell you, and my friends will tell you, my patients will tell you, I'm the same person in my office I am at home and I'm outside. And the reason some of my patients will tell is because I'm friends with them. And that's on purpose friendship. It's not, just, it happened. I built a practice over the many years that I've been here. And this is a dream practice for me. This is not the type of practice I had when I first opened up. It's certainly not the type of practice I had in the middle of my career. But at the end of my career, and I hope there's many more years of this, but at the end of my career, I've developed the office, the clientele, the manners in which I work is exactly how I would envision it. And God forbid it if I should die tomorrow. But if I did, I'd be a happy man because I think I created what I really wanted to create in my life.
Jack, gosh, I think that the love, it's all about the love is going to be the title about this podcast. But my goodness, I would love to break that down a little bit. So you, a lot of people say, I really love this, but you can't make a career out of that. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You can make a career out of love and do it in 100 different ways. I love that you made that part of who you are. And I believe it because you are authentic. Every conversation we've had, I know for a fact that you're a human being.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that you have trials, that you have struggles like all of us do. But when we speak, I am the most important person to the world. That's how I feel. And I guarantee, and I'm getting emotional here, I guarantee that's how every chiropractor feels that talks to you. And so because you come from a place of love, when you give me counsel, you better believe I'm going to do it. Because I know it's coming from a place of loving authority and knowledge. And that is why we thrived when you were when you were over the IFCO. That is why we have thrived. You MC countless events where you head up, you're the voice, and people listen to Jack Bourla because you come from that place of love. There isn't any reason why we can't start with that end in mind in our practice. Yeah. I absolutely adore that about you. That's who you are, and you've carried it now.
That's awesome.
One problem that I'm sure you've heard of in the chiropractic profession, it's that terminology, we call it the leaky bucket syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Where as many people are coming in, you've got holes in the bottom, and that many people are coming out. Jack, what is the longest patient that you've treated in your practice? How long have you had?
So my very first patient I had before I actually even opened my door, I was scheduled to open up on a Monday. And Sunday, I get a call from this guy. He says, "Hey, I heard about you. Is there any way you can see me today?" It was a Sunday. And I didn't have, my tables were being delivered on Monday. So I had a portable table and said, "Meet me in my office." And so I went in. I went in my office on a Sunday, and Steve hobbles in, and he was all about, I have back pain. And we eventually transitioned him, obviously, because I still see him, into a different model. But he came in, and he was my very first patient. I know him. I know his family. I know his kids. And so for 25 years, he's been a patient of mine. And most of my patients who have come in, unless they've actually moved, or I've had some who have passed away, are still here to some extent. Now, they may not be here weekly. They may not be here bi-weekly, but they're here at least on a monthly basis because they understand, and it's taken some time, but they understand that chiropractic isn't about what many people think it is. It's about, are you living your life to its fullest? Are you expressing your innate potential to the maximum? And so I talk about these things. It rolls off my tongue because this is what I believe in my DNA, like we spoke about earlier. This information is in my nucleotides. And so I believe that. And so it's not a sales pitch. I don't sell, I discuss. And I don't control my patients. I help them, and I give them options on how they want to handle their care in my office. And maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I don't have time to have multiple personalities. Wow. And so I don't have a personality that's different at home. I don't have a personality which is different with you. Because you know what? It's kind of like lying, right? If you lie once, then you're gonna have to lie again, then you forget where the lies are. And before you know it, you don't know where the truth is. And so I don't have time for that in my life. As I've gotten a little bit more mature, that's another word for getting older. But as I've gotten more mature, I realize that the most important thing in our lives are the people and the relationships that we formed. And I don't have time to not be authentic with them. I don't have time, and I don't have the desire. It's not even a question of time, but I don't have the desire. It's just not who I am. And for good or for worse, this is who I will end up, I think, as I take in my last breath. And I hope that's many, 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 many years from now.
That is not shocking, and that is not surprising for me to hear in the slightest about you. And the fact that is a reputation that you have, and that is a reputation you have. I mean, you and I have been in Puerto Rico together. We've been in the East Coast together. We've been on the West Coast together. We've been in Florida together. We've been in Texas and Arizona together. We've been everywhere together. And that's the resounding, that is who Jack Bourla is. That is who Jack Bourla is. I love that you've created that place within your practice.
Yeah.
I love that you've created a place of acceptance where
Yeah.
people can come. Now, every one of us has an ideal client, someone that we just love to see. But you've created a place where people that you have helped stay, they pay, they refer a ton of people.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you wouldn't mind, speak to some of the people that come in that they feel so comfortable in your presence that their job is they've taken upon themselves to want to make you happy. It's not just you for them. They want to make Dr. Jack's day. They want to make your day. Share us what goes on in your practice and how that was created. If we already haven't spoken about that.
Sure. The first thing I do is this. I don't use the word doctor in my office. I'm Jack. I'm Jack at home. I'm Jack at the grocery store. I'm Jack at the mechanics. I'm also Jack in my office. It doesn't mean that I'm belittling our profession, but I believe we're chiropractors. Now, I don't think people should call me Chiropractor Jack, so they just call me Jack. And I think when I do that, it just kind of lowers the barrier of resistance that people may have. But because I am who I am, and you know, I tell them from the very first day they come, I said, you're going to have a lot of fun here. I am going to take your existence and your potential very seriously, but we're going to have fun in the process. And because of that, it just, again, it lowers the barrier. It just, people get relaxed. So I have, for example, I have this father and son team that come to see me every 3 weeks. And it's Richard and John. John's the son, Richard's the father. Richard just turned, I think he turned 88, and John's in his 40s. And they come every 3 weeks, but they dress up in costumes to entertain me. So it's a different costume every time they come in. They invariably bring me gifts. They bring me little piñatas. They bring me little a Day of the Dead planters. They bring me, I have a thing in my office called Mikasa Sukkot. So they bring little things, and they're very endearing. And they come in because they understand that when we have time together, one, we're going to be very honest with each other. And they know that I'm going to give them the best chiropractic care that I possibly can. And it's going to be genuine, loving care, because that's how I treat everybody. I honestly feel so blessed to be in this profession. I mean, I could have been in any other profession. When I was a kid, as a Jewish boy, you really only have a choice of two professions. Either going to be an attorney or you're going to be a doctor. That's right. It. One of those two. And I knew what attorneys did all day long because my dad was constantly having to hire them because he was always getting in trouble. I didn't want to have to argue every single day. So I said, I'm going to become a doctor. And so in the back of my mind, I always had, I was going to become a doctor. And my real desire was going to be, I wanted to be a cosmetic surgeon for disfigured kids. And I wanted to fly all over the world in these Doctors Without Borders and provide cosmetic surgery for kids that had disfigurements at birth. That was what I wanted to do. And life throws you curveballs. And so I love baseball, and life threw me a curveball. And so instead of striking out, I went with the curveball. I hit the opposite field, and I didn't become a chiropractor, but I didn't become a medical doctor, but I became other things that eventually led to me to become a chiropractor. And the interesting thing, Jake, is that when you look over your life, in fact, when you look over your day, which I hope everybody does, I do a daily personal inventory. Before I go to bed at night, I ask myself, what worked and what didn't work? And whatever worked, I'm going to enhance. What didn't work, I'm going to work on. And so when you look at your life in its totality, and you look at all the things that you've done and all the people that you've been fortunate enough to cross paths with, you're going to say, everything was orchestrated for me. This was all done at the right time with the right people at the right place, the right quantities. And it's kind of like the healing process. It's all been orchestrated by some universal intelligence. I happen to call it something else, but it's universal intelligence. And for me, I look at life as just this totality of things that all make sense. And maybe you're going through a time in your life where things don't make sense, but when you step back and you give yourself a chance to evaluate and analyze, you'll say, makes sense now. I had that struggle because it made me stronger in this area. Or I had this was really easy for me because I was able to bring people with me. I honestly believe that if you're advancing in life, you don't bring other people with you, then you're not really advancing. Wow. And so my job is to, I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco.
Yes.
But in San Francisco, there's a place called Fisherman's Wharf, and San Francisco is where I was born. And in Fisherman's Wharf, they have these stands out in front of different restaurants and different fish shops. And it's this big, huge bowl that they put crabs in, and they boil the crabs and they serve you fresh crab. And there's this thing where as one crab begins to get out, the other crabs pull it back in. And what I'm thinking is that if I'm the crab that's getting pulled out of that hot water, I want to bring people with me. I don't want to get pulled back in, but I want to take people out of that hot water to survive and thrive and do what I believe God had intended us to do. And that's kind of who I am. So it's easy for me to be with people because in general, I like people. I love humanity. Some of the humans kind of piss me off, but I like humanity. And so I believe that humanity has a purpose. And that is to make it special for everybody, to make it special. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Jake, but I have two children. I have a 34-year-old daughter and I have a 12-year-old son. And they kind of have taken on, maybe by example, because I don't force them to do anything. I want them to live their lives. I want them to experience what they're going to experience. I will certainly guide them because I think that's my role as a parent. But I want them to do what they're going to do. And my daughter played basketball in high school, and she was pretty good. In fact, she was the MVP of her team. And she, like me, had this love for the underdog. And one day, and the reason I know this is because her teacher called me, but one day she was in the quad. The quad is where all the people kind of hang out at lunchtime. And there's this kid named Robert who's had some challenges in his life, and he would have conversations with himself. He'd flail his arms and do all kinds of things, but he was Robert. And one day Robert was walking through the quad and the football players were teasing him. And my daughter walked up to the guy who was primarily the teaser. And she said to him, and the reason I know this is because the teacher told me, she said, if you ever make fun of Robert again, you have to come through me. You know, Dr. Monique Andrews says there's two types of people on this planet. There's the wet ones and the dry ones. I'm one of the wet ones. It's just the way it goes. But I heard that story and I was so proud of her for standing up for another human being. And I think if you can't stand up for your fellow human beings, then what are you doing? You know, what do you do? What are you doing that you're so busy that you can't help another human being? And that's how I view my purpose on this planet, is to help the human beings. Now, with my son, who's 12, so I've got a 22-year discrepancy between my kids. He could actually be my grandson. But with my son, and I think I may have told you this before, we have this daily ritual, because what I want him to do is I don't know what goes on in the world once he leaves my house, but I know that when he leaves my house, I want him prepared for whatever comes at him during the day. And so I have 3 questions which I ask him every single morning before he leaves. And the first question I ask him is, who are you? And he replies, I'm the GOAT, the greatest of all time. The second question I ask him is, what is our family motto? And he said, winners always win. And I ask him, what is our family purpose? And he says, to leave planet Earth better than we found it. And with that, I say, have a great day. He rolls his eyes at me and off he goes to the bus to go to school. But I prepare myself every morning with my affirmations, with my, I thank God for the day. And I want that with my kids too, because I don't know what's going to happen to them once they leave the house. And I have that same attitude with my patients that come in. I want the best for them. Like David Meltzer, you and I both know who David Meltzer is. In fact, we spent quite a bit of time with him. One of the finest human beings on planet Earth, because his heart is so big. I mean, if I could have a heart like his, I would love that. But if he can give everybody he meets a cell phone and say to them, you can call me anytime you want, well, I can do that too. And I've been giving away my cell phone to my patients forever, with the understanding that if they ever need something, they can text me. Don't call me because I never answer my phone, but you can text me. And so they'll text me and they have permission to text me. Even so, in my office, one of the systems I have, Jake, is an auto schedule. They schedule their own appointments. I'm not going to schedule their appointment for them. I'm not going to chase them down. They make it, they miss it, they still have to pay. It's just the way it goes. But I give them my cell number and I tell them, look, if you can't get on my schedule and you really feel like you need to get in, text me and I can move some people around. Don't worry about it. But that's the relationship I have. So they know that when I give them my cell number, it's because I love them. It's because I'm here for them. And I will do almost anything I can within reason to help them. whether it's chiropractically. Sometimes they just want to talk. I've had people who just want to talk. I've married people, and I've been officiant of a couple of marriages in my office. I get invited to bar mitzvahs and to bat mitzvahs. I get invited to all kinds of stuff because it's relational.
Yes.
You know, one of the things we talk about in Black Diamond Club, of which you and I are both members, is relational capital, relationship capital. And that's all I know. That's all I know is the reason I've gotten to where I've got today is because of the people and how I treat them and how they treat me and how we have respect and love for one another. And absent that, what the hell are you doing?
You know, I love a few points. If we were to kind of dissect that, you know, you are when it comes to relational capital, you are a purist at this. You have an absolute skill set. And I know you have to cultivate that skill set. You know, you gave that analogy of the crabs in the pot, right?
Yeah.
So as I was thinking, and then you shared the examples, those private and personal examples of your family, your son and your daughter, which were so touching and beautiful and real. You know, and I was thinking, like, what does Jack Bourla do in the day? Like, how does he actually prove that point in his day? Because it's easy to have an analogy, right? It's easy to say, yeah. Who's ever seen that? Well, I mean, you can just visualize the crabs pulling the others into their death, right? Yeah. I constantly, was it twice yesterday? I think, I haven't looked today, like one or two times on Wednesday. I see that Jack says, hey, Melkrug. Hey, look at Rhea here. Hey, look at so-and-so here. And you're sharing who they are, and you are so authentic. Because when Jack speaks, Jack has someone else. In that conversation right now, you shared your kids, you shared Sean and Lacey Book, you shared Dave Meltzer, you shared the Black Diamond Club. But because that is who you are. And relational capital, ROR will eat ROI for breakfast any day of the week. And when we're looking from just a gain, but when it is authentic and pure, if Jack calls, everyone is going to answer night or day, no matter what. And when Jack asks, it will be answered. I love that you've done that. So would you mind sharing how you actually make that happen? So when you write a post for somebody saying, hey, just so you know, so-and-so just started this new business, or so-and-so, look at this incredible thing this person has done. How do you actually make that happen? Because everyone has busy lives. Everyone has their own businesses, their own families. How do you make that happen on a day-to-day basis? How do you do it?
How do you not do it? How do you not do that? How do you not help somebody who is doing great work that is going to benefit so many people? How can you in your good conscience say, I'm not going to do that? I mean, and if you don't do it, it's because you're saying you're not going to do it. How can you do that? I believe that we never know who the next Gandhi is going to be. We never know who the next Mother Teresa is going to be. You never know when you're entertaining an angel. You just don't know. And so why wouldn't you treat everybody with the utmost respect and with the attitude that if I can help facilitate, I hope that I could do great things in the world and my name is never mentioned. I don't want the credit. I'm just a conduit. You know, there are those of us who are conduits and connectors. I kind of think that I'm one of those people. I don't want credit for it. I don't want any dignitary stuff. I'll take a nice bourbon, but I don't do it for the recognition. I do it because it makes me feel, I do it for selfish reasons. And the selfish reason for which I do is because it makes me feel good. I love when I can help somebody to do what they set out to do and then watch the ripple effect of when that happens. Because I do believe in this thing of the butterfly effect. I do believe that all good deeds lead to even better deeds. If I played a small part in, Mel Krug becoming the next, because she's such a nurturer, she becomes the next Mother Teresa. Amen. I'm so happy for that because I know that humanity will benefit from that. It's honestly, Jake, I wish I had a formula. I don't. It's just kind of, I must have been how I was raised by wolves, but no, I had great parents. It must have been a function of how I was raised. And I also was raised during a time of social consciousness. I was raised in the 60s. This is when the counterculture revolution took place. This is when, as a young kid, I learned of the assassination of my hero back then, who was John F. Kennedy. And then Martin Luther King shortly after that, and then Bobby Kennedy after that. These people led this counterculture revolution, this sparking of the love for humanity. the free speech movement. I was a kid, so I was very much affected by that. And what I saw was human potential at its best. And so that's what do we do as chiropractors? We help to explore and unleash this human potential within patients that we're privileged to serve. So for me, everything as I look back, I said, well, that certainly makes sense. It's exactly why I did what I did. That's exactly where I was in that third grade class on November 11th in 1962, when it was announced that JFK was assassinated. It was for a reason. And the reason, I believe, was to make me more compassionate and empathetic, and to love my fellow human being even more so. And that's, and so now take that from third grade, multiply it by many, many decades. And here I am now. I'm just an older version of who I think I was probably in third grade with a goatee.
You weren't born with that?
No. Well, I was, but it was dark. Now it's just like,
a common belief is that D.D. Palmer adjusted Harvey, right? Lillard, but it was you. He adjusted Jack. And that's why Jack has just lived so long and so well.
That's it.
Well preserved.
I was Harvey Lillard. He didn't become Harvey Lillard, but that was me. Yeah, Jake. When we begin to understand, and I'll tell you, my understanding didn't come when I graduated from chiropractic college. My understanding came later. It came later when I began to surround myself with people who were way more knowledgeable about chiropractic than myself, and that was people like Sean Dill and Andy Roberts. Yeah, those guys. Andy became a very dear friend of mine. In fact, Andy and I either talked or chatted every night for years, during which he would insult me, insult my family, insult my mother, say the most horrible things. And we would fight. He and I would fight every single night, but we never hung up the phone without saying, "Good night, brother. I love you. Talk to you tomorrow." That's how all of our conversations ended. And that happened for years and years and years. And when you can find an Andy Roberts in your life, hopefully not just like him, but someone who knows chiropractic as well and as much as he does. Sean Dill's another one. Sean, I don't know if people understand the depths that Sean knows about chiropractic philosophy and its principles. I mean, he taught at Life West.
By far. Right?
But he knows so much more than what he teaches, because he's well-read. He's kind of like a savant guy, but with a personality. And it was amazing how much I learned from him just by interactions. And, he and I had this philosophy group together called the Alliance. And because of that relationship, he and I became quite close. In fact, I officiated his wedding, which you may or may not know, but I officiated. I did not know that. Yeah. He and Lacey got married in the Philippines and asked me to officiate their wedding. So I did. And in fact, it was the only wedding that was the complete wedding was done stand up, because I forgot to tell people to sit down. So Sean will tell you that. But it's relationships, right? Where are you with that relationships? Everything you do, you can probably trace back to somebody or some group that allowed you to become who you are. Wow. Yeah.
I love, and I was hoping that was the answer you were going to give when I asked, how do you do it? It is always about pure love and care. Yeah. Money, and how many times do we say money will come? Money will come. When you are passionate and compassionate, and you are absolutely 100% dedicated to not only preserving, but removing the stress and the interference from a person's life and allowing them to truly live their limitless potential, it comes from a place of love. You guys, Jack is you are the real deal. And the success you have had, there are many who say, you don't be friends with your team. Don't be friends with your patients. Don't be friends with that. So, and I love what you said. I don't have time for what?
I don't have time to not be me.
Yeah, but about the personalities, you said for multiple. Like I don't have time to have multiple personalities.
I am who I am, and I'm that way with everybody.
That is. Oh, go ahead.
That's kind of my mode. I mean, we've talked about this, but why have multiple personalities at your office? Like who I am with my wife. Well, I'm different with my wife, but who I am with you is exactly who I am with Lacey, right? With Lacey or with Mel Crew. It doesn't matter who you are. You're a human being. And what I always look to is what is this person's potential? And is there a role for me to play in it to help them express that potential?
Yes.
That's what I think of. And when people come to my office, I say, I know where they are because we've discussed where they are. And now I'm thinking, where could I help them get to, which would be a better version of themselves? Because I firmly believe in BJ's Utopia. I firmly believe, if you look at Article 399 in Stevenson's Volume 14, I believe that if we are without vertebral subluxation, we are a much better version of ourselves. We'll be a better parent, a better husband, a better son, a better worker, a better citizen. And I think if we could take this and snowball it into a massive movement, which is what I would hope chiropractic would be, which is why you and I are involved in the IFCO to make that happen. If we can make that happen, why wouldn't we have the best planet to live on? Why do you want to go to the moon? My wife is, I think, she's a rocket scientist, and she works at NASA, and her project is they're looking at, they have an instrumentation which she's helped design and build, and they're going to send this up on the rover to the moon. And what it's going to do is it's going to go over the surface of the moon looking for water. And once it finds the water, how far down below the surface that water is for the potential habitation of human beings on the moon. Why would I want to go there when I can have my own utopia here? And I think that chiropractic is not the, but it is a way to get to that utopia. And our role, I think, is more than just, popping joints and cracking bones. Our role is to free the innate intelligence. Is to free the potential that we all have within us to do great things. And I think that, a community and a state and a nation and the world that does great things, we won't have Russia and Ukraine. We won't have this insanity. We won't have killings and mass murder. It just won't be part of who we are. Because why would it be? That's a destruction to this utopia. So maybe I'm a dreamer, but that's part of my generation I grew up with. I'm not the only one.
You're not the only one, Jack.
I'm not the only one. But if we could change our mindset just a little bit from, I want to buy that new car. There's nothing wrong with buying that new car, but I want to buy that new car because of the work that I did in freeing someone else's potential and making them a better version of themselves. Man, you're going to love that car even more.
That is the absolute truth. When you have a vision, when that is your vision, because I hold that same belief. I hold that belief that the person on my table is going to change the world. Abraham Toledos, who is the former vice president of the Latin IFCO. Yep. He said the same thing the other day. He said, I firmly believe that the person on this world, when I adjust them and free them and allow them to live their potential, they will change the world. One of our dear friends, Liam Schubel, Scott Garber, hold that same vision. Steve Tullius. There are countless. I mean, you and I could sit here. If we only sat here in this podcast and said, let's name every single person that we love. Let's start with chiropractic. It would have gone 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that is the vision, and we're not the only one. And this is what I want the Chiropractors Edge to truly understand, that when you catch yourself saying, I don't have enough, that is a scarcity mindset, because the person in front of you is your everything. When you catch yourself feeling those feelings, you have to focus and turn your heart to your patients, to your practice members, because that is where the world will change. That is where your pocketbook will be filled, and it will allow you to have abundance. And when you are vacationing, when you are in that car, you will be able to truly enjoy it because you got it through love. You got it worthily. You got it honestly, morally, ethically, and that will fulfill you. And that is what is going to change this world. Jack,
totally agree.
I love you. Love you. I am grateful for you. Anyone here, if you are not a member of the IFCO, we're going to have a link below. Jack, we're going to have you on again in the future, but thank you for sharing us love. Thank you for sharing your vision. And this is the lesson that, when learned, will truly change this world. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you, Jake. It's a pleasure. Thanks.